Billionaire husband's secret date night with mistress turns into a nightmare when pregnant wife shows up. The clock struck 9 on a crisp autumn evening in Manhattan when the unthinkable happened. Alexander Harrington, a charming billionaire known for his sweeping philanthropic gestures and a lifestyle even tabloids could scarcely keep up with, wasn't with his pregnant wife, Amelia. Instead, he was seated at an exclusive corner table in one of New York's most prestigious restaurants, preparing for a secret date night with a woman who wasn't wearing his wedding band. Little did he know that a single phone call would set into motion an explosive chain of events, culminating in heartbreak, shocking revelations, and the ultimate test of loyalty. Alexander Harrington was not just any billionaire. He was a man of elegance, flaunting a life that could easily be mistaken for a fairy tale. Raised in London's opulent Kensington district, Alexander had spent his teenage years hopping between prestigious boarding schools in Switzerland and his family's penthouse in New York City. Though he inherited the Harrington fortune founded on global real estate and technology investments, he had also proven his own prowess by expanding the business into emerging markets, forging alliances with companies like SpaceX, Google, and Tesla. The world saw him as a charming genius, but behind the stately smile and perfectly tailored Brioni suits lay a man with secrets even his closest allies never glimpsed. The Harrington name carried weight in Manhattan's elite circles. People whispered about the art collection he housed in his modern glass penthouse above Central Park, rumored to include rare Picasso and Monet pieces. Invitations to the Harringtons' holiday galas were nearly impossible to obtain. Even the likes of Bill Gates, Bernard Arnault, and European royalty vied for a coveted spot on the guest list. Everyone admired Alexander's philanthropic spirit, annual donations to medical research, funding scholarships in underprivileged communities, and a rumored plan to open a chain of advanced pediatric clinics across North America. Standing by his side through much of this philanthropy and grandeur was his wife, Amelia Harrington, née Amelia Bennett, a Boston native who had met Alexander during a charity benefit in the Hamptons. Amelia, a quietly confident woman with a passion for humanitarian work, possessed a kind of understated elegance. She was an accomplished pianist and had served as an ambassador for global youth programs. When the two had met, sparks flew instantly, surprising everyone. The media couldn't get enough of the mesmerizing tale of a dedicated philanthropist meeting an equally devoted activist, falling in love and tying the knot in a lavish but heartfelt ceremony in Saint-Tropez. Now, Amelia was expecting their first child. She was 6 months pregnant, and although she glowed with maternal excitement, she carried the slightest hint of loneliness. Lately, Alexander's presence seemed more fleeting than ever, his world brimming with international meetings, business expansions, and hush-hush deals always demanded more of his time. On the surface, she understood success at Alexander's level came at a steep price, but a quiet fear had started to nestle into the corners of Amelia's mind. He was drifting away, and each day she sensed he might be hiding more than just complicated business transactions. It was a Tuesday evening when Amelia first sensed a profound shift in her marriage. She had awakened to find Alexander missing, despite it being well past 3 in the morning. Concerned, she wandered the penthouse until she found him staring out the floor to ceiling windows. His phone glowed in his hand, casting a blue hue over his chiseled features, but his expression was grim, haunted. When Amelia approached, he quickly locked the screen and slipped the phone into his robe pocket. Her heart clenched. He painted on a reassuring grin before gently guiding her back to bed, mumbling something about a crucial Asia-Pacific conference call. She believed him because Alexander rarely lied, at least as far as she knew, but the following nights revealed an unsettling pattern. Suddenly, short business trips turned into unexpected overnight stays. Meetings in Los Angeles extended by days. A rumored investment deal in Dubai had him spending long weekends away. While Amelia's due date crept closer, Alexander became more elusive. One afternoon, Amelia confided her worries to her close friend, Lucy Davenport. Lucy was a public relations director at Harrington Enterprises and had witnessed the married couple's love story from the start. Over tea at the plaza, Lucy tried to reassure Amelia that Alexander was likely just under immense pressure. After all, the Harrington brand was in the process of acquiring Morgan & Sons real estate, a massive undertaking requiring legal intricacies, endless negotiations and closed-door sessions with attorneys at Thomas & Beck law firm. "He's definitely stressed," Lucy said, in a comforting tone. "You know, Alexander, he wants to succeed at everything, especially before the baby arrives." Yet Lucy's soothing words did little to quell Amelia's worry. A seed of doubt had been planted in her mind. Only time would tell if it would sprout into a sprawling web of deception or merely wilt away under the reassurance of a loving marriage. One cold December morning, Amelia's suspicions escalated to fear when she discovered a crumpled receipt in Alexander's coat pocket. It was from a lavish restaurant she had never heard of, La Lumiere, a discreet Michelin-starred establishment on the outskirts of Manhattan. The dinner cost alone exceeded what most people paid in monthly rent. What caught her eye even more, the date was last Thursday, a night she recalled Alexander telling her he was in Chicago for a developer conference. Amelia's heart pounded. Rational explanations attempted to calm her. Perhaps he had arrived back in town earlier than expected. Perhaps it was a client dinner that had slipped his mind. But the swirling uncertainty persisted, swirling until a wave of nausea added to her pregnancy-induced queasiness. If he had lied about Chicago, what else might he be lying about? Determined to keep her composure, Amelia slipped the receipt into the pocket of her cardigan and waited until that evening to confront him. She was sitting on their plush living room sofa, the city lights flickering through the glass windows, when Alexander strolled in, late as usual. He wore the exhaustion of a man pulled in 1,000 directions, but his posture tensed instantly when he saw the serious look on his wife's face. "Alexander," she said softly, "I found this in your coat. You told me you were in Chicago on that date. Care to explain?" He froze, searching for the right words. "Oh, that," he replied, too casually. "My flight was delayed. By the time I realized I wouldn't make it to Chicago in time for the conference, I returned to Manhattan and ended up taking a potential investor out to dinner. I'm sorry I didn't mention it. It slipped my mind." Amelia studied his face. His eyes darted a bit, betraying the confident facade he often wore. She wanted to believe him. She had every reason to. Still, a nagging feeling whispered that there might be more to the story, more that he wasn't telling her. In the days that followed, Amelia tried to push the doubts aside and focus on preparing for the baby. She spent time shopping for cribs and adorable onesies, reading up on parenting tips, and finalizing the decor of the nursery. Though outwardly she appeared excited, her mind remained cluttered with worry. One afternoon, Amelia bumped into an acquaintance at Bergdorf Goodman, a woman named Cassandra Doyle, once a school friend of Lucy's and a fixture in Manhattan's social scene. Cassandra was known for her flamboyant personality and her knack for gossip, the type of person who discovered everything about everyone. "Amelia, darling," she cooed, "you look absolutely radiant. How are you feeling?" Amelia forced a polite smile. "I'm feeling wonderful, thank you. Just counting down the weeks until the little one arrives." They exchanged the usual pleasantries, but as Amelia prepared to excuse herself, Cassandra's tone shifted. "Are you sure you're all right?" I've heard some things, and I just want you to be careful." Alarmed but attempting to remain calm, Amelia pressed, What sort of things have you heard? Cassandra waved her manicured hand dismissively. Oh, it's probably nothing. You know how rumors are in this city. But if I were you, I would keep an eye on your dear husband. He's been spotted out with an acquaintance, let's say, but it's likely just business. The pit in Amelia's stomach churned violently. She swallowed, forcing a cordial smile. Thanks for the concern, Cassandra. I appreciate it. Long after Cassandra's figure disappeared into the crowd, her words echoed in Amelia's mind. A wave of doubt surged. Alexander being spotted out with another woman, could it be harmless? Could it be the potential investor he'd taken to dinner? Or was it something else entirely? Amelia took the elevator back to her car, her heart a tight knot. She decided then that she would no longer rely solely on Alexander's explanations. If she truly wanted to learn what was happening, she would have to find out for herself. Amelia reached out to a private investigator named David Friedman. She'd overheard his name at one of Alexander's business gatherings. Friedman had a reputation for being discreet and thorough, often handling corporate espionage cases for top-tier clients. If there was anyone who could help Amelia discern the truth without stirring scandal, it would be Friedman. They met in a quiet cafe on the Upper East Side. Amelia arrived incognito, wearing large sunglasses and a simple black coat. David Friedman, a tall, lean man in his early 50s, with sharp features and an even sharper intellect, greeted her politely. He had no illusions about his assignment. A powerful man's wife wanted the truth about her husband's suspected affair. Mistress Harrington, I assure you this will be handled with the utmost confidentiality, Friedman began, his voice measured. We usually investigate corporate fraud, but your case requires similar expertise. We'll track his activities, gather photographic evidence if necessary, and report only to you. No one else. Amelia nodded, her throat tight. Thank you. I need clarity. If Alexander is lying to me, I need to know how deep it goes. David Friedman slipped her a business card with a simple phone number. I'll be in touch. We operate quickly, so you might start getting updates soon. Are you certain you're ready for this? She hesitated. Deep down, she almost wished Friedman would advise her to turn back, to keep believing in love and marital bliss. But the doubt had ballooned too large to ignore. Yes, she whispered, I'm ready. Within a week, Friedman began sending Amelia discreet text messages detailing Alexander's whereabouts. Most times, Friedman reported that Alexander was indeed at his office or in meetings at Thomas and Beck law firm. However, on a fateful Friday evening, Friedman relayed a startling message. He's at La Lumiere again. Not alone. Amelia felt a hollow ache in her chest. She read Friedman's next text, a photograph of Alexander seated intimately close to a striking brunette in a figure-hugging red dress. The woman's back was to the camera, but their body language was clearly more than business. Amelia's hand trembled. She braced herself on the kitchen countertop, forcing herself to keep reading Friedman's final text of the night. They left together and drove to the Waldorf Astoria. I'm following. By the time Friedman updated her again, he confirmed what Amelia had dreaded. Alexander and his companion had checked into a room on a private floor, known for its discreet service to high-profile guests. Friedman waited until they left some hours later, snapping photographs of them stepping out of the elevator. The woman's face was partially visible then, revealing a delicate, beautiful face with sultry green eyes. That night, Amelia cried quietly into her pillow. Her heartbreak was tinged with an urgent desire for answers. Who was this woman? And why had Alexander been driven to this betrayal while she carried his unborn child? Yet in the midst of her sorrow, a steely resolve formed. She deserved the truth, and if Alexander wouldn't tell her, she would find it in her own way. 2 days later, Amelia confronted Alexander in his study. Gripping her phone with Friedman's photos displayed, she demanded answers. She had intended to remain calm, but the moment the words tumbled from her lips, "I know you're seeing another woman," her voice cracked with anguish. Alexander paled. His eyes darted to her phone, and for a fleeting second, guilt wove itself across his handsome features. Then he tried to regain control of the narrative. "Amelia, it's not what it looks like. 1. Let me explain." She felt fresh tears welling up, her composure unraveling. "Go ahead," she whispered. "Explain, if you can." Alexander ran a hand through his dark hair, exhaling shakily. "Her name is Serafina Marchand. She's not my mistress. She's a very important client. Her family manages a private equity group in Europe, and we're in advanced talks about a major partnership." That's all. Amelia's breath caught. The pain in her chest was almost unbearable. "So you take your client to a hotel room for hours?" she retorted, voice laced with bitterness. "Do you think I'm naive?" He held up his hands defensively. "All right, I admit I let things go too far, but it's complicated. We were finalizing details that are too sensitive for an office environment." Serafina demanded privacy. "We met in that suite because her father is ill, and she's about to inherit the equity group. If the news leaked, it would cause market panic." The excuses sounded ludicrous, but Amelia recognized a kernel of possible truth. Alexander's empire thrived on complicated deals that required absolute secrecy. Still, her fury remained. "Were you intimate with her?" Alexander's silence spoke volumes. He looked away, and guilt radiated off him like a heat wave. Amelia's heart sank. She felt as though she were standing on a ledge, surveying the wreckage of her marriage. Finally, Alexander said softly, "Amelia, it's over. I ended it. I swear. I got caught up, and I hate myself for it. I can't lose you, especially not now." She swallowed hard. The waves of betrayal coursed through her, almost making her dizzy. "I need space, Alexander." "I can't even look at you right now." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I understand. Take all the time you need." "I'm so sorry." Amelia swept out of the study, feeling more confused and hurt than ever. Alexander's confession had confirmed her worst fears. He had betrayed her. But had he truly ended it, or was this just another layer of deception? Despite her heartbreak, life didn't pause for Amelia's misery. Her pregnancy was entering its final trimester, demanding more frequent doctor's visits and an ever-growing list of preparations. She decided to move temporarily into the Harrington family's beach house in the Hamptons, citing the stress of the city. Alexander agreed it was best for her to have some quiet, so he arranged for her to have whatever she needed. Servants stocked the spacious house with fresh groceries, comfortable maternity wear, and all the medical support she might require. The estate in the Hamptons sat atop a gentle hill overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. Its pristine gardens and private beach might have offered tranquility, if not for the turmoil raging in Amelia's heart. Late at night, she'd stare out at the moonlit waves, feeling the baby's gentle kicks and wondering if her marriage had any chance of survival. Her phone chimed often with messages from Friedman. Though she had initially hired him to track Alexander, Friedman now found himself investigating Serafina Marchand's background. He discovered that Serafina was not merely an heir to a European private equity empire. She was also rumored to have a history of seducing powerful men to secure beneficial business deals. Friedman dug up hushed stories of corporate leaders in Paris and Milan who had found themselves enmeshed in scandal after dealing with her. But there was another twist. Friedman discovered that Serafina had a dark secret tied to an older man named Victor Lombardi, a shady financier who had once been indicted for securities fraud. The rumor was that Serafina's fortune was on shaky ground and that she needed a hasty partnership to cover a massive debt. She was, in essence, courting the Harrington empire and Alexander like a spider weaving a web. Amelia's mind reeled. Could it be that Serafina's relationship with Alexander was purely strategic, a cunning move to secure her financial future at the cost of Amelia's marriage? Perhaps Alexander's guilt was genuine, but had he simply been ensnared in a sophisticated trap? One afternoon, as Amelia paced the beach house, Friedman called, "Mrs. Harrington, I've tracked Miss Marchand to a private meeting in the city. She's meeting with Victor Lombardi at the Four Seasons Hotel, a place they frequent together. If you want to see for yourself, you might find some answers there." Despite her better judgment, Amelia felt a burning need to confront the situation head-on. She told Friedman she would come in person, hoping to gain clarity about the woman who had shattered her life. That evening, dressed in a loose-fitting black dress that concealed her pregnancy, to some extent, Amelia ventured to the Four Seasons. Friedman was waiting in the lobby, discreetly pointing out where Serafina and Victor were seated. Together, they slipped into a nearby booth, separated by a wall of frosted glass, enabling them to overhear snippets of conversation. Serafina's voice had a melodic lilt, yet carried a cold edge. "I've come too far to let Alexander slip away. He's the key to everything, Victor. If I don't seal the deal, you know what will happen. I need your help, your resources." Victor's reply was laced with disdain. "You're in debt up to your pretty neck. I told you this from the start. If you fail, you'll be of no use to me. I expect repayment." Amelia's throat tightened. A wave of anger and dread coursed through her. Alexander was being used, manipulated by this cunning woman. But just as quickly, bitterness rose in Amelia's chest because Alexander had allowed himself to fall for Serafina's trap. Friedman placed a gentle hand on Amelia's arm, guiding her away as their conversation concluded. "You have your confirmation," he said softly, once they were outside the hotel. "She's exploiting him. But from what I overheard, it doesn't sound like it's just business on her end. She plans to keep him close, possibly more intimately." Amelia inhaled sharply. Her baby kicked in her belly, a subtle reminder that this wasn't just about a marriage, but a family. "I have to protect my child," she murmured. "I have to protect our future, no matter what." The next morning, a remorseful Alexander arrived at the beach house unexpectedly. He was dressed in a casual sweater and slacks, a stark contrast to his usual immaculate suits. The lines around his eyes seemed deeper, as though he hadn't slept. "Amelia," he began, voice raw. "I had to see you. I can't stand how broken we are. I'm miserable. I need to talk." Amelia exhaled slowly. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. She led him to the sunroom overlooking the ocean. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the crash of the waves filling the stillness. "Why?" Amelia whispered finally. "Why did you cheat on me with Serafina Marchand?" Alexander, eyes damp, spoke hesitantly. "I swear I didn't plan on any of this." The business negotiations were complicated, and she was persistent. "I won't make excuses. I let it happen, but I ended it, Amelia. I truly did. When we checked into that hotel, it was to finalize a contract away from prying eyes. I'd already told her we couldn't continue. But she threatened me. She threatened to ruin the Harrington name, to sabotage deals, and to create a public scandal. Amelia studied him, searching for deception. She saw regret, fear, and maybe even love. She decided to share what Friedman had discovered. "I know about Victor Lombardi," she said evenly. "I overheard Serafina last night. She wants to exploit you for her own financial gain." Alexander blinked, stunned. "How? How did you find out?" "A private investigator I hired," Amelia admitted. "I needed the truth." A mix of relief and shame crossed Alexander's face. "I'm sorry, Amelia. I was too ashamed to tell you." Serafina was blackmailing me, in a way threatening to reveal a rumored affair, feeding the press any scandalous story she could spin. I was trying to protect my reputation, the company, and ultimately, you. I was afraid the stress would harm your pregnancy. I never meant to hurt you. Amelia felt a pang of empathy. Yet betrayal still lingered. Even if that's true, you still chose to sleep with her. I can't just forget that. Tears glistened in Alexander's eyes. I know, I don't deserve your forgiveness. But please, give me a chance to fix this. For our baby's sake. Amelia wanted to believe him, but the wounds were fresh and raw. I need to see real change, she said, voice trembling. End every business dealing with her, publicly if necessary. Show me you're committed, Alexander. He nodded, eyes steeled with resolve. I will. I'll do whatever it takes. Later that week, Alexander arranged a meeting with Serafina at Harrington Enterprises. To ensure there were witnesses and no chance of private manipulation, the meeting took place in a glass-walled conference room with key board members present. Amelia, unbeknownst to the others, watched from an adjoining office, Friedman at her side, documenting every move. Serafina arrived in a designer coat, her face cool and unreadable. She greeted the board members politely, but her eyes glowed with anger the moment she spotted Alexander. He cleared his throat, speaking carefully. Miss Marshall, I've gathered our board to discuss the proposed partnership. After careful consideration, we have decided to step away from any potential alliances with your company. A chill settled over the room. Serafina's face tightened, though she kept her composure. Alexander, I'm not sure I understand. We were on the verge of signing. Alexander folded his hands, forcing a calm demeanor. It's not in Harrington Enterprises' best interest to proceed. He paused, meeting her gaze directly. And from a personal standpoint, I no longer wish to be in contact. Our association ends here. A flicker of fury crossed Serafina's gaze. You'll regret this, she hissed. You think you can just cut me off? I have enough evidence to ruin you. The tabloids will devour any sordid detail I feed them. One of the board members intervened. Miss Marchand, we have our reasons for withdrawing. We kindly ask you to leave. Legal counsel will be in touch about any remaining contractual obligations. Serafina glared, her voice dripping with venom. This isn't over. Don't forget who you're dealing with. She turned on her heels, storms roiling in her eyes, and stormed out. From the adjacent office, Amelia watched this showdown with a conflicting swirl of triumph and fear. Alexander had effectively burned the bridge, but Serafina's parting threat hung in the air. She was a dangerous woman, and it was evident she wouldn't vanish quietly. Within days, the tabloids erupted. Articles bearing sensational headlines began circulating online. Billionaire Alexander Harrington's secret lover exposes racy affair. Photographs of Alexander and Serafina at La Lumiere, stepping into the Waldorf Astoria, and even a grainy shot of them embracing in a hallway, plastered the gossip sites. A statement attributed to Serafina accused Alexander of using her for financial gain before discarding her, painting him as a manipulative playboy who toyed with her emotions. Amelia felt sick to her stomach. She watched the media circus unfold from her quiet sanctuary in the Hamptons, phone blowing up with messages and missed calls. Even Lucy Davenport, her friend and Alexander's PR director, was frantic. We can't contain this, Lucy lamented. It's out of control. The press is running wild with rumors. Social media feeds were ablaze with both condemnation and disbelief. Some believed Alexander had been seduced. Others insisted he was a philanderer with a pattern of infidelity. Meanwhile, Harrington Enterprises' stock wavered as investors grew skittish. It felt as if the carefully constructed Harrington empire was close to imploding, undone by scandal. Amelia knew the storm would only worsen when the press discovered she was pregnant. She dreaded the paparazzi flocking around her, eager for a shot of a betrayed, heavily pregnant wife. Determined to protect herself, Amelia restricted public appearances. She was in emotional turmoil, torn between heartbreak for her husband's betrayal, sympathy for the child in her womb, and anger at Serafina's brazen manipulations. Yet amid the chaos, Alexander called daily, apologizing profusely. He begged Amelia to let him see her. He pleaded for them to stand united in the public eye, to show a strong family front that might quell the tabloid inferno. But Amelia resisted. She needed time to decide whether she could stand by him after such a betrayal, or whether the final straw had been drawn. On a stormy afternoon, Lucy came to the Hamptons to see Amelia in person. Drenched from the rain, Lucy was a bundle of nerves. She held a folder filled with documents. Over cups of steaming tea, Lucy opened up about the internal crisis at Harrington Enterprises. "The fallout from this scandal is enormous," she said, her voice shaky. "Major investors are threatening to pull out. Board members are divided. Some blame Alexander's reckless behavior for jeopardizing the company. Others think we should stand by him because of his track record of success." Amelia listened. Eyes flitting over the documents, Lucy showed her graphs reflecting plummeting stock prices, emails from concerned investors, and statements from Harrington's legal team. "And that's not all," Lucy said in a hushed tone, sliding over another paper. "This is a letter from Serafina's lawyers. She's suing Alexander for breach of contract, emotional distress, and defamation. She claims he lured her into a personal relationship to secure her company's investment, then publicly humiliated her by cutting her off." Amelia stared at the paper, fury bubbling within. The lawsuit was a strategic weapon aimed at Alexander's Achilles heel, his reputation. The more sensational the claims, the more damage it would do in the public sphere. Lucy reached out and clasped Amelia's hand. "I know you're hurt. I know Alexander did you wrong. But we're on the brink of losing everything if Serafina wins." Amelia drew a shaky breath. "What can we do?" Lucy offered a grim smile. "Alexander's legal team is mounting a defense. But a personal statement from you standing by him would help. People see you as the moral compass. If you say, 'I forgive my husband, we're united,' it might sway public opinion. Even if not, it could stem the tide." The request felt overwhelming. Amelia's heart twisted, warring between loyalty to the man she once deeply loved and the pain he'd caused her. Was she prepared to publicly back him when she hadn't even decided if she would stay married to him? Reluctantly, Amelia agreed to attend a preliminary court hearing for Serafina's lawsuit. The press swarmed outside the courthouse steps, cameras flashing, voices shouting questions as Alexander escorted Amelia from the limousine. Amelia felt her pulse skyrocket, her pregnant belly making her an instant focal point. Alexander gently placed a hand at the small of her back, guiding her protectively inside. She maintained a stoic expression, though internally she trembled, grappling with a tempest of betrayal and uncertainty. Inside, Serafina sat with her legal team, wearing a black designer dress that accentuated her striking figure. She feigned a look of wounded dignity, occasionally dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. When her gaze drifted to Amelia, it hardened. The hearing proceeded with measured legal jargon. Serafina's lawyer alleged that Alexander had manipulated her personally and financially. Alexander's counsel countered that Serafina's lawsuit was a ploy to extort money. Fueled by her own precarious financial position, tensions flared. The judge eventually scheduled a more extensive hearing in the coming weeks, granting a temporary order that none of the parties could disclose sensitive details to the public, an attempt to prevent further media fiascos. When the hearing ended, the press lunged outside. Questions about Amelia's pregnancy, Alexander's fidelity, and Serafina's motives flew from every angle. Amelia clutched Alexander's arm tighter, praying she wouldn't faint from the emotional overload. Cameras zoomed in on her face, On her abdomen, every moment documented for a salivating public. By the time they reached the safety of the limousine, Amelia's breathing was shallow. Alexander held her close. "I'm so sorry," he murmured. "I never wanted any of this for you." She shut her eyes, remembering the endless nights she waited alone, pregnant and uncertain. "Apologies won't fix this," she whispered. "Only your actions will." Over the following weeks, Alexander made good on his promise to show Amelia he was committed. He cut ties with suspicious business connections, delegated more responsibilities to senior executives, and made a concerted effort to spend time in the Hamptons with Amelia. During these visits, he treated her with a gentle tenderness that reminded her of why she fell in love with him in the first place. He invited her on peaceful walks along the beach at sunset, carrying her sandals and supporting her gently whenever she stumbled on uneven sand. He started reading parenting books, discussing baby names, and cooking her late-night snacks when cravings hit. Gradually, Amelia's guard lowered, though the sting of betrayal still lingered. At her 7th-month prenatal checkup, Alexander surprised Amelia by appearing in the waiting room with a bouquet of pink roses. He held her hand through the ultrasound, eyes tearing up when they both heard the steady whooshing of their baby's heartbeat. "I love you, Amelia," he whispered, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "I love both of you more than anything." A tear slipped down Amelia's cheek. In that moment, a fragile bond seemed to mend between them, overshadowing, if only briefly, the chaos that lurked outside the doctor's office walls. Just when Amelia felt the slightest sense of calm, Serafina struck again. Despite the judge's order not to leak details to the press, a salacious article surfaced on a lesser-known gossip blog. It claimed to have inside information about a secret paternity suit, that Alexander was allegedly the father of Serafina's unborn child, and that Amelia's baby might not be his only heir. The rumor went viral within hours. International tabloids picked it up, plastering headlines like "Harrington love child," "Billionaire's mistress claims pregnancy." This new bombshell threatened not only Amelia's emotional stability, but also the very foundation of her life with Alexander. As soon as Amelia read the allegations, her world went sideways. She fought off a wave of panic, baby kicking anxiously within her. Could Alexander have impregnated Serafina? Her mind spun in circles, dredging up images of him with that woman in a hotel room. She felt nauseated, undone. Alexander's immediate denial came through a tearful phone call. "It's a lie, Amelia, I swear. She's lying to manipulate us further. I haven't slept with her in months, and she's not pregnant with my child. I'd gladly take a DNA test to prove it." Though deep in her heart she wanted to trust him, the betrayal had made trust fragile. Friedman sprang into action, attempting to verify Serafina's claim. Meanwhile, Lucy scrambled to release a statement discrediting the rumors. But tabloids rarely cared for official statements when a scandalous story was more profitable. Nightfall brought raging storms to the Hamptons, thunder shaking the windows while relentless rain pelted the beach house. Alone in the living room, Amelia stared at her phone, the baby monitor strapped around her belly picking up each flutter of movement. She felt every ounce of stress weigh on her. Suddenly, her abdomen clenched with a tightening pain that stole her breath. A few moments later, another wave of pain hit. Alarmed, she counted the seconds, recalling the warning signs her doctor had mentioned. She was only in her 7th month, too early to be going into labor. When the pain persisted, she dialed Alexander, voice trembling. "I think something's wrong. The baby. I might be in preterm labor or something. I need to go to the hospital." Alexander promised he would arrive as soon as possible, but the storm had snarled traffic. Panicking, Amelia called Lucy, who arranged for an ambulance to rush her to a local hospital. Rain-slicked roads made for a terrifying journey, each contraction feeling like a vise around her abdomen. She felt alone, petrified, and uncertain of her future both as a mother and as a wife. At the hospital, doctors scrambled to stabilize her. They administered medication to slow the contractions, hooking her up to monitors that tracked the baby's heart rate. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, Alexander burst into the room, drenched and breathless. He rushed to Amelia's side, grief and fear etched into his features. "I'm here," he whispered, kissing her clammy forehead. "I'm not going anywhere, I promise." Amelia's tears flowed freely. In the swirl of fear, heartbreak, and the searing pain in her abdomen, she clung to Alexander's hand, wishing she could forget every moment of betrayal and simply remember how it felt to be held by the man she loved. The medical team managed to halt Amelia's premature labor, though they insisted she remain on bed rest in the hospital for several days. The baby seemed stable, but the doctor warned that stress was a significant factor. "She needs to avoid emotional upheaval," he cautioned Alexander sternly. "Her body can't handle this kind of strain right now." Taking the doctor's words to heart, Alexander put his entire life on pause. He shut down the swirling media circus, refusing to attend business meetings or even respond to urgent calls. Instead, he spent each moment at Amelia's bedside, fetching her water, helping her eat, reading to her from baby books in soothing tones. It was during one of these quiet moments, as the sun rose beyond the hospital windows, that Amelia found herself staring into Alexander's eyes. Despite her pain, she felt a renewed sense of closeness. "I feel like we lost ourselves somewhere," she murmured, voice filled with regret. He pressed her hand to his lips. "I know. I'm so sorry for everything I put you through. I'd give anything to turn back time." Amelia's eyes searched his. "I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again." A tear slipped down his cheek. "I'll spend the rest of my life proving you can, if you let me." In the silent hospital room, overshadowed by machines that monitored the baby's heartbeat, the two of them found a fragile truce. Their marriage had been battered by deception, but the shared fear of losing their child created a sense of unity neither had felt in months. 3 days into Amelia's hospital stay, David Friedman arrived with surprising news. Serafina was not pregnant. He handed Alexander a folder containing evidence, a leaked medical report, and statements from a source inside Serafina's circle. The pregnancy claim was a fabrication, a desperate bid for sympathy and leverage against the Harringtons. Friedman had also discovered that Victor Lombardi had cut ties with Serafina. Upon learning of her baseless claims, he considered it too risky, especially under ongoing legal scrutiny. A wave of relief washed over Amelia, though bitterness remained. "So this is what she does," Amelia sighed, leaning back against the pillows. "She weaves lies and illusions to manipulate men." Alexander swallowed hard. "I'm so sorry I brought this chaos upon us." Friedman cleared his throat. "There's more. We tracked her financial dealings and discovered significant debts, as we suspected. She's on the verge of losing properties across Europe. The last card she played was this lawsuit and the fake pregnancy to squeeze money from you." Alexander's face hardened. "She won't get a penny. Let her see us in court. With the evidence we have, she'll be the one facing charges of defamation and perjury." Friedman offered a small nod. "I'll coordinate with your legal team." Amelia closed her eyes, relief tempered by exhaustion. "Let it be over soon. I just want peace for our child." A week later, Amelia was released from the hospital on the condition she continue bed rest at home. The final court hearing for Serafina's lawsuit loomed. Although her doctors advised her to avoid stress, Amelia insisted on attending, if only to put an end to this nightmare once and for all. On the day of the hearing, cameras clogged the courthouse steps again. This time, Lucy had prepared a discreet entrance, and the Harringtons were ushered through a private corridor, avoiding the gauntlet of questions. Inside the courtroom, Serafina wore a stark white suit, a last-ditch attempt at projecting innocence. Yet her once confident demeanor appeared rattled. Alexander's lawyers presented Friedman's compiled evidence documentation that invalidated Serafina's pregnancy claims, financial records displaying her massive debts, and even evidence that her relationship with Alexander was part of a calculated ploy to secure a quick cash infusion. Serafina's lawyer attempted to salvage the case, arguing emotional distress, but the judge, unimpressed, dismissed the majority of her claims. In a final blow, Alexander's team announced their intention to file a countersuit for defamation. Seated at the back, Amelia observed Serafina's face as the judge read the ruling. Serafina's lawsuit was deemed baseless. Any further legal pursuit would require new, credible evidence. The possibility of a countersuit loomed large over Serafina, who stood trembling. Gone was the alluring woman who had once flaunted her power. In her place was a cornered individual facing the collapse of her plans. When the session ended, Serafina tried to approach Alexander, but security prevented her. She turned her gaze to Amelia, who watched from a distance. For a split second, Amelia felt a pang of unexpected pity, recognizing how desperation could drive a person to ruin. But the pity evaporated when she recalled the anguish Serafina had caused. In that silent exchange, an unspoken understanding passed between them. Serafina had lost, and Amelia had reclaimed her strength. With Serafina's lawsuit dismissed and the scandal slowly receding from tabloids, Alexander moved swiftly to restore Harrington Enterprises' public image. He arranged a press conference where he apologized for the personal turmoil affecting the company, emphasized his commitment to ethical business practices, and expressed gratitude for the investors who stood by him. But the real work lay at home. Though the media began shifting its gaze to fresher scandals, the rift between Alexander and Amelia would not mend overnight. He spent evenings by her side, discussing childhood memories, sharing hopes for the future, and, more importantly, answering her every question about the affair. Sometimes Amelia cried, other times she lashed out in anger. In response, Alexander remained patient, acknowledging her pain rather than denying it. Gradually, trust sprouted anew, like a tender shoot in spring. It wasn't perfect. Doubt still flickered in Amelia's mind. But each day, Alexander found ways to remind her that she was his priority, whether through cooking her favorite meals, rubbing her aching feet, or reading parenting guides aloud in bed. He also began couples therapy sessions, wanting to confront the emotional scars. At first, Amelia balked at the idea, feeling raw and exposed. But as the sessions progressed, they unveiled truths about their relationship, how Alexander's fear of failing had led him to a reckless path, and how Amelia's insecurities made her retreat into silence rather than confront her suspicions earlier. Painful realizations, yes, but also a roadmap to a stronger bond, if they chose to follow it. As Amelia's due date crept closer, Alexander decided to plan a special evening for her, a peaceful date night at the beach house, far from the prying eyes of paparazzi. He transformed the backyard into a romantic oasis with fairy lights strung around the palm trees, a table set with fine china, and soft jazz playing through discreetly placed speakers. Amelia, guided outside by Lucy, gasped at the sight. The flickering candles and the gentle murmur of waves set an enchanting backdrop. Alexander stood, anxiety etched in his face as he smoothed his shirt, hoping this gesture would convey all the love and regret he held within. They dined on fresh seafood, with Amelia sipping a doctor-approved mocktail. The conversation flowed with a surprising ease. Memories of their early days resurfaced, how they'd met at a charity event, the stolen glances, the first kiss. They laughed, tears glistening in their eyes, grieving how they had let their love drift astray. Underneath a sprawling sky dotted with stars, Alexander pulled Amelia to her feet. He cued the music to a slow, gentle tune, sliding an arm around her waist. Amelia rested her head on his shoulder, letting him sway her in a careful dance, aware of her pregnant belly between them. Their love felt fragile yet resilient, scarred yet hopeful. "I'm still scared," she admitted softly. "I'm scared you'll hurt me again." He pressed his lips to her forehead. "I can't promise life will always be easy or that I'll be perfect, but I promise to be honest, to fight for us, to never let you face hardships alone." A tremor ran through Amelia's body as she released a slow breath. Deep down, she sensed the sincerity in his vow. And in that singular moment, with the moon reflecting on the waves, she felt a quiet certainty maybe, just maybe, their love was worth fighting for after all. A month later, Amelia went into labor, and this time there was no panic. The contractions came on steadily, as though the baby had chosen a peaceful morning to enter the world. Alexander rushed her to the hospital in Manhattan, and Lucy, Friedman, and a handful of close friends stood by, ready to support them. Hours later, as the first light of dawn broke, a healthy baby girl was placed in Amelia's arms. Tears streamed down both parents' faces as they beheld the tiny miracle rosy cheeks, delicate fingers curled into a fist, a soft cry that mingled with their laughter. Alexander gently brushed Amelia's hair aside, kissing her temple. "She's perfect, just like her mother." Emotion washed over Amelia, a profound sense of love that transcended every betrayal and every sorrow. They named her Aurora Elizabeth Harrington, in homage to new beginnings and the dawn of a brighter future. In the weeks that followed, the tabloids found other stories to feast upon, and the Harrington scandal faded into the background. Serafina vanished from the public eye, rumored to be living in Europe, battling legal issues of her own. In contrast, Alexander and Amelia stepped forward, stronger as a family. They shared a carefully orchestrated interview on a reputable talk show, discussing philanthropy, the joys of parenthood, and the lessons learned from personal mistakes, though they never mentioned Serafina by name. The public saw a couple united, tested by adversity but not broken. Behind closed doors, life was not perfectly seamless. Arguments happened, trust still required nurturing. Yet every morning, Amelia awoke to Alexander, tending to Aurora, singing lullabies in a soft baritone. She saw the changes in him, the sincerity in his apologies, the unwavering care he gave their daughter, and his renewed dedication to being the husband she deserved. With Aurora in her arms and the promise of a second chance, Amelia found herself believing in hope again. Conclusion: approximately 150 words, with a call to action, a whirlwind of scandal, heartbreak, and redemption. That is the story of Alexander and Amelia Harrington. Their fairy tale life was tested by betrayal, threatened by an unscrupulous adversary, and watched by the glaring eyes of the world's media. Yet in the end, love, resilience, and a single glimmer of hope allowed them to rebuild what was nearly lost. Their precious daughter, Aurora Elizabeth Harrington, symbolizes a renewed commitment, a promise that even in the aftermath of life's darkest storms, a sunrise always emerges. If you found yourself captivated by this emotional journey and its dramatic twists, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others who appreciate a tale of love's triumph over adversity, and subscribe to our channel for more riveting stories that echo real-life struggles and extraordinary resilience. Your support helps us continue sharing these unforgettable narratives. Thank you for watching.